Ever looked online and wondered why people use these things in their aquarium? But what is the purpose for them? Well, today I'm going to tell you why. There are a few different reasons why people would use leaves in their aquariums. Number one is for the visual look. It's always great to have that nice natural looking fish tank for your fish. But also some people use them for a more functional purpose. Some, for example, can be used as food for shrimp, or others can be used as a great sort of spawning area for various fish or shrimp. There are absolutely hundreds of leaves available around the world, but what exactly can you use in a fish tank? Well, there's a fair few online, and if you go on some of the more popular websites that sell various botanicals around the world, then you will probably see a fair few. Things like Indian almond leaves, or guava leaves, or mangrove leaves, or oak leaves. Some of these leaves also do have various different benefits. For example, the Indian almond leaf, not only is it a great visual looking leaf, but it also releases various minerals that can be beneficial to your fish, and also can be used as a natural sort of medicine, if you will, especially for betta fish or Siamese fighting fish, whatever you want to call them. It can help with fin rot, it can help with white spot, that sort of stuff. So it's more of a natural remedy. Leaves like the jackfruit leaf or nettle leaf can do exactly the same. Now, nettles are really good because they have a ton of different beneficial properties. Number one, they are a natural fertilizer, so if you put them into your fish tank, they can be used to help fertilize the plants, so you don't have to use like an actual fertilizer bottle. So if you've got stinging nettles in your garden, then this can be a very cheap alternative to them. Also, they produce a ton of minerals that can be beneficial to your fish and shrimp. And if you do put them in, then you might notice things like color difference and better health. So it's a benefit and a win-win all around. So I think the biggest thing that many people will ask is, why would I use leaves in my fish tank? Well, the obvious answer is because there is a ton of benefits to them, but what are their benefits? So, if you think about the tropical freshwater fish that you have in the hobby, many of these come from various river streams around the world, specifically Asia or South America. Now, in these areas where they are complete rainforests, there will be loads of trees and foliage all above the river stream. Now, during certain periods of the year, those leaves will drop down into the river and land on the riverbed. So when you look at these environments online, for example, you might see massive riverbeds just full of leaves or various other botanicals and pods and that sort of thing, as opposed to just loads of plants and a very clean and clear water. Many of the leaves produce a element called tannins. It's a natural substance that is released from various botanicals, but leaves are a very prominent one, and it will cause the water to go brown and murky. Now, I don't know if you've seen that online, but many people often have their fish tanks like that, and that is a purely intentional thing. And what that does is that can reduce line of sight for fish, and it can help them feel more comfortable within the environment they're in. So it's helping release those natural behaviors to your animals. I always laugh when I talk about this because I think most people, when they look at their fish tanks, would assume, especially because when you walk into a shop, you will see a very clear and pristine aquarium, maybe full of lots of plants. Now, plants are an absolutely amazing step forward in the right direction, but it has came from a generation where you had fake plants and color gravel and all these like treasure chest bubble men and divers all in the tanks and stuff. So it's all those ornaments, and you know, this is a nice step in the right direction. So if you're using leaves and botanicals, then you are introducing a whole new element to your fish keeping experience. Now, there is a niche area in the hobby for this, and a lot of people are often called biotopers, or you know, it's often referred to as blackwater or natural aquariums, whatever you want to call it. But essentially, what the idea of those type of fish tanks is to take all those elements from their natural habitats and try and help recreate some of those elements within their fish tanks. And the reason you do that is because it could encourage better spawning behavior, more natural behaviors as well. Your fish might act differently, they might color up better. So there's just so many amazing benefits to this. Now, obviously you can go online and buy a lot of leaves, but also some people would wonder, why can't I go to my local woods and just pick up leaves that are found on the ground? Well, you can actually do that. the most important thing to be aware of is, number one, just doing your research and just making sure that you know the type of leaves that you're putting in. Most leaves should be fine, but some can contain dangerous chemicals, so it's just always best to be prepared. First of all, do your bit of research. There's many people that have tried and tested stuff. It's still early days with a lot of these elements, so some things haven't been tried and tested. So you are daring to take the chance, then I think that it would be best to do that in a more controlled environment. So if you are going to try out leaves that you haven't seen the research for, then maybe put them in a body of water and do some various testing on it before you add them to an actual fish tank and introduce them to your animals. Now, personally, my recommendation, if you did find any leaves that you wanted to collect, make sure, number one, they are completely dried out, so they're not greens, they're dead, completely dead. They also fell from a tree naturally, so you haven't just climbed a tree and pulled them off. Remember that we want to keep our environment safe and we don't want to cause any more danger to it than we already do sometimes. And again, the third one is purely optional, but it's highly recommended, especially from myself and many other people within the hobby, is that when you do get those leaves, you bring them home, you stick them in a saucepan, boil them up for half an hour to an hour at least, and just make sure that you are boiled up, because many of the leaves can be found in certain areas, and what you might find is that various animals have urinated on them. They could be in polluted areas. Again, if you are searching for leaves, make sure that you are in the middle of a woodlands, as far away from any kind of pollutants as you can. So that's like near a road or anything like that. So it's kind of a big no-no, because you don't want all those harmful chemicals that come from cars or other vehicles introduced into your fish tank and harming your animals. So it's always best to do this in a more controlled environment. Take them, boil them, and then drain the water from the boil that you've just done, because again, you don't want to be introducing all of those nasties or dangerous chemicals that are in the water back into your tank. Now, some people do this to kind of get that instant blackwater effect, but again, it's highly recommended in my view that you pour it out and put them back in. Most leaves are strong enough to produce that tannins, that tea stained color quite quickly again, especially with various ones like the Indian almond leaf, which is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to stuff like that. Put that back into the water, and within a day or two the water should color up nicely. Now, it's also worth noting that some leaves do not produce as much tannins as maybe the Indian almond leaf, so you might get different effects from the different types of leaves that you're trying, but it's always good to test it and see how it goes. And you could also introduce different botanicals like alder cones. They're again a massive powerhouse for producing that tea stained effect in your aquarium, so you could try using them instead. Ultimately, if you are going to try leaves, it's a fantastic route to go down. Introducing any kind of natural elements like that into your aquarium can be massively beneficial to your fish, and also when you introduce them with plants, live ones for example, can just make an absolutely amazing kind of natural environment for your animals. And it's just giving them all the experience of being able to sift through all that leaf litter. They've got the plants there for that more natural sort of green look. You've got the absolutely stunning contrast between the greens and the browns that you get, and then if you've got some really nice colorful fish in there and they're really coloring up nicely, then you have a really nice natural setup for your animals. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you're wondering why this fish tank is green, then you should be checking out this video right here as to why. And until next time, you stay safe.